Hey guys, it's Axiom with Good Time Gaming. The recent decision by Valve to introduce paid mods for the game Skyrim has caused a major ripple in the gaming community. There's a whole lot of anger, frustration, comments, and all sorts of shit rolling out there. So, here to help me break down all of this information and outrage and just shitstorm that has taken over the internet in these paid mods is my friends Innerspike
Hey, how you doing?
and my friend Xomm.
Hey,
So let's first talk about the actual announcement itself. Just the page that came up and what Valve has kind of said that they're trying to do with these mods.
so it looks like that Valve wants to have sort of a market for mods to where they want to have creators not only be directly paid for their content, but to make their content in a premium fashion to where mod creators can invest a certain amount of time and expertise to a project. So what Valve is also doing is saying to the publishers, the developers of the game, says, "Hey, you actually can get part of the money that these mod creators are making, and we'll make some too." But the problem is that well, it crosses into a realm that has not been crossed into before. We've never seen a market to where mods have been paid to get.
Yeah, and the implication is that it's kind of like a microtransaction store. You know how some games have microtransactions in them for, cosmetic sword for $1, and that's so far essentially what the market seems to be. But there are larger mods that, for example, Sky UI and some other mods that are going behind a paywall that were originally on the Nexus and other sites.
Midas Magic was one of the ones that I saw that now has a gold, as it's called on the Skyrim mod store. It's called a gold version of it now, and that one's a paid version. It looks pretty innocuous at first. Like if you actually go to the main page on Steam, if you refresh it, it'll show a couple different mods on there. Like right now, my screen has gifts of Akatosh, which is just like some armor and some other stuff. But there's other different ones on there, and it looks really innocuous. Like, oh, you're just gonna get, this cool armor and maybe a shield, or there's gonna be like some little effects in the back. Like the mod in the background right now is called Purity, so I guess it makes things look a little bit better. So it looks pretty innocuous, like it's small things. But then again, this is just kind of started out. I mean, what's going to be the next big mod that might go behind paywall? Is it going to be like, oh, hey, for $10, you can have access to this new cave that's got all these adventures in it? Is that going to be the next thing that's going to come up here? We don't know. Okay, so obviously there's been a lot of different reactions about this. A lot of people have different thoughts, opinions, and ideas about whether or not this is just fine the way it is, whether or not it needs to be maybe adjusted, or maybe it just needs to be thrown out entirely and then never spoken of again. So what's been kind of the reaction from the community? We'll start with community, and then we'll kind of go over into the quote unquote like official like press sources of this. So what's been kind of the reaction from the community at this point?
Complete fucking disaster comes to mind. It has been pitchforks, just everyone getting up in arms. I mean, we have communities quite literally dedicated to praising Valve at PC Master Race, who has essentially gone from praising someone to absolutely hating a company. And
That's kind of a new thing for Valve. I mean, honestly, like they've enjoyed this really good PR for a long time, and even whenever they do things that people kind of don't like, mostly they just get over it and they go on. But this has been a really major explosion, I think.
Right, there's never been this kind of negative response to something that Valve has done in quite a while, if ever.
Valve gets a lot of flack for a lot of things they do wrong, especially in their support, which is by far some of the worst support you can see in a large company.
Referring to like customer service, right?
Yeah, like customer service and support is just abysmal. But as much flack as they've gotten for that, they've gotten flack for, when they initially opened up the market to, to items for like in Dota 2 and CS:GO and all these other kind of paid cosmetic items being sold in the market. They got a lot of flack for that. I mean, they got a lot of just terrible PR. But this by far trumps anything Valve has ever done that has ever got them negative PR, ever.
And it's gotten to the point where if you look at the comments section of any of these mods, there's really no discussion about the mod itself. There's
It's all politics.
it's mostly all politics. Yeah, it's mostly all criticism of the mod system. People saying, "Oh, boycott this mod, don't buy it because it encourages a bad business practice or whatever." And a lot of those discussions are actually getting censored. And as far as I can tell, I can't access any of them. You try to open them, they will say you do not have permission to access this page. So either they've been deleted or whatever. And it's a similar situation on the Nexus for mods that are going behind a paywall. For instance, Sky UI, Wet and Cold, their comment sections are blowing up, and the moderators are locking those topics as well. So
yes, because they've
shitstorm
decided,
either way.
I guess at some point, that they're going to be going into the paid model as well. So what do y'all think about the cut that the mod maker might be getting? Because we don't really know 100% for sure. There's been some numbers thrown out there that Valve might be getting 30% of the cut, but there's not really anything official that any of us have really seen. The mod maker gets a percentage that is based on what the developer sets. So how do y'all kind of feel about, just what do you think about the percentages in general in terms of what the mod maker stands to make out of this?
To be perfectly honest, I don't think anybody should be saying mod makers deserve X%, right? You got to remember that these developers, one, like you said, they get to set the percent, but it goes back to it goes back to when people say, oh, it's not worth making mods for a game. It's like, well, yeah, it's true. You know, some people don't want to spend so much time and they want to be paid, yada yada yada. But I think what people kind of forget is that they're kind of expecting this to be not a career, but an opportunity to make a lot of money. They're forgetting that these are just regular mods that people can make in hours or, just days, and they're thinking that, oh, they should be paid hundreds of dollars for these mods. It's like, well, not entirely. So the percentage that gets set really is kind of like more, you got to think of it more as an incentive. It's got to be more of okay, you guys get 25% of all the money you make. How many people are going to go out there and make better mods? And in the only the few days that this has been going on, that or at least has been released beyond an NDA, we've gotten a few pretty prominent developers saying it's worth it to them. They think it's good enough. Now, not every mod developer thinks that, and that's just how it's going to be. It doesn't matter even if it was 50%. There's still going to be mod developers that will never charge for their mods. There'll always be, people who say, oh, it's not enough for a game. They're not coming up with their own unique ideas so much as they are coming up with their own kind of, what they want in the games. Like, oh, I really wish I had an armor or a weapon or a location that I could do this with.
And consider that the developers of the game itself generally will for games that are designed to be modded, they will develop some kind of mod creator kit, like Bethesda has the creation kit for Skyrim.
Exactly. And how much time and how much effort went into that. Now, and I'm not making the argument that, if you make a mod creation kit that you deserve certain much money back. I think Bethesda has made, 3 times the amount of money that they spent on it back in people who purchased the game or in just, revenue because they had that mod creation kit.
Let me ask a question to that then. So do you think developer releases a creation kit? Do you think at this point in the game, are they going to now be releasing that kit thinking that, oh, hey, if we make this kit, people are going to like it, that they can mod the game so they can add stuff? Is it going to be more for a good feeling just to be good to your game base? Or do you think at this point it's going to be, well, if we release this kit, then maybe here in a few months on the Steam Workshop, we can put out these mods as paid and we can get even more money out of this? So what do you think? Good PR, or is it now going to be that these toolkits are going to be coming out as a way to make more money?
Well, of course, the toolkits aren't they cost money to make themselves, so it would have to be a cost-benefit analysis from the developer themselves.
I think what's actually going to happen is that more games will actually take up the mod creation kit. Like games like Skyrim was always going to have a mod creation kit. That was kind of default, right? That was always going to be in it. Like and they also have done it for Fallout, and Fallout had its own the Gex system. There's no plans for a Fallout paid mod kit, but hey, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. But other games that are not as big as, say, Fallout or Skyrim, it opens up the possibility of, hey, we can actually make directly money back from a mod creation kit rather than saying, oh, it'll increase sales or oh, it'll increase PR. Now you actually go to your boss and say, hey, a mod creation kit, we can actually make money back from the community on it. Period. And from a business perspective, that's not half bad, especially for some companies that are out there and making, maybe not the AAA games, but are like, say, Payday 2. Let's say Payday 2 comes out with a mod creation kit, but they only could possibly do that. They can actually ever make it worthwhile because there is now a way for people to make mods directly from that mod creation kit that they spent so much time and effort into.
Is that fair though for someone who's already shelled out possibly $60 for a game to now be paying more money for more cosmetic items or for a few dungeons or something like that? That's not even made by the developer, but rather someone else.
That's where this gets iffy, because if you consider the library of mods that the average Skyrim user, for example, has, dozens, under about 100, even more than 100 maybe.
I think I ran with 60 at one point.
Yeah, and the thing is, if every single one of those mods charged, would people be using them less? Because I certainly am not going to be shelling out $80 for all those mods.
Personally, I hate when people say, "Oh, what if I had to pay for every single one of them?" Like that's an extreme.
It is an extreme, but it could conceivably happen, at least in some sense, where the majority might be paid for, or at least, if not the majority, perhaps the more favorable, the better ones might be paid for.
Well, that's kind of true, kind of not true. Perfect example that I want to bring up is Sims 3. Now, if you go into Sims, there's a very, very wide range of mods out there that are both premium, where you have to pay for it, or they're put behind a paywall by certain websites and certain services, and ones that are not. And you already see, we already see that the best mods out there are not paid for. The best mods out there are free. They're put out there by people who genuinely love the game. Like, they don't do it because they want to make money off of it. They don't do it because they're trying to make a career out of it. They do it because they love it. Right.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
And they're not gonna put out, oh, here's a super overhaul for $20. It's like, no, they don't do that. I mean, that's like a doomsday theory that people have come up with to try to justify their hate for this, which is like, oh, what if everything costs money, or what if only the good stuff costs money? It's like, well, it could happen. I won't say it won't happen, but it's so extremely unlikely.
And also the thing to consider from a mod developer's perspective is, if you put your mod behind a paywall, then your user count will go down. You're not going to have as many users. So if you want your mod to get out there and be popular, then probably best to keep it free.
And that actually brings up a great point. Is I forget who it was, but a guy made an extremely huge mod for Skyrim. It added a whole new land, and the guy essentially used it as a resume. This guy made a mod. It was
called Felscar.
Yes, that's what it was. It was Felscar, and he made that game as a resume for Bethesda. It's like, hey, Bethesda, this is my work. This is what I can do. Everybody loves it. Everyone who plays it is having great fun with it. And, hire me. Now, in the end, the guy didn't get hired by Bethesda. If I recall correctly, he got hired by Bungie. But he did get that job because it was free, and it got him a lot of PR and a lot of people behind him. And
I think he was 19 too. I just pulled up the article. He was 19 whenever he put that out, and he was hired at Bungie as a result of it.
So that kind of segues into the next topic then. Would this system be better off as an official donation system, or do you think the mod shop is the way to go?
Yeah, in a perfect world, Valve's gonna add a donation button to all free mods. Like, that's a perfect world, where we have the paid mods and we have the free mods. And if you want to support the people who make free mods, there'll be a link, there'll be a button, and it'll be really convenient for you to donate. And I guarantee you that'll increase donations, right? It's because I guarantee you
Yeah,
there's people
because
out
I'd
there
probably do that.
that want to donate, but it's like, well, I have to open up this mod, I have to read through it, find out this guy's information, and see if he has a donation or a way to donate to him. Because some people don't have PayPal or they don't have it set up to receive donations.
Right, and it's in some prominent place that people can easily access.
I think that's what a lot of it comes down to as to whether or not people will utilize it is how easy is this for me to find it, because I don't want to take time to find it. As much as you might like someone to be passionate about it, people don't want to sit there for 10 minutes trying to find a link for something.
So let's say we treat the mod shop as, a donation button then. How would that affect your view of it, if at all?
It would take a lot for me to donate something, especially if you consider, like I said, I think at one point I had around 50 active mods at one point, which is probably a little bit more than what you might want to run a game with. Obviously, I'm not going to, one, be able to, or two, even donate to every single one of those people on there, no matter how much maybe I like that mod. But that's just kind of where I'm at. It's just, some would, obviously, I might donate to a few, but maybe not to all. I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, when you have 50 mods and and you may donate to the first few that you find, but after you start downloading 30, 40, 50 mods, not using them all at once, but downloading them. When you have to shift through hundreds of mods to find the ones you want, do you really feel like donating? I mean, really? Especially when you watch a Twitch streamer, you're watching one, or you have a few that you like. You find those few that you like and you keep watching them. But with the Skyrim mods, you have so many mods. And I could see, personally, I can recall probably about 3 or 4 mods that I would actually like to donate to. And I have donated to a few, but it was only a few. Now that I have a more stable income and I have more money to kind of throw at these people, I would definitely donate to more. But it'd only be probably like not even 10%. Right? It'd probably be like Sky UI, or it'd probably be like Felguard, or it'd probably be something that introduces a huge addition to the game. But
something that's
game
changing.
Right, something that's I'm going to personally invest several hours into. Sky UI by far made the game so much more enjoyable for me. I think a few dollars is definitely worth donating. But would I pay $3 up front before I play it? That's a decent question.
Yeah, I have the same sentiment about that. I would donate if I, really did like the mod and use it a lot, but I'm not going to pay up front for it. And there is the 24-hour refund period for after you buy the mod.
What if though the mod is just complete and utter shit?
That to me is the bigger issue, is where the responsibility lies. Is it in the modder's responsibility to make sure that it's compatible, or is it the customer's responsibility to kind of go through and make sure that it works? Because if you're paying $4 or $5 for a mod that may not work, is that really going to make you feel like you want to pay for other mods that may not work either?
Yeah, you raise a good point there. Is there any quality control at all? We've seen some of the joke mods get removed, obviously, but that's,
although I actually like a couple of them.
Is there any pre-screening, or is it all just reactionary? Oh, this mod is actually a joke. Okay, cut it now.
Everyone's going to go out there and they're going to see something really nice, and they may get fooled. And it's going to happen. And it happens to everybody. There's not a person out there that has played games long enough that says they have not made a bad purchase, or they made a mistake. There's nobody out there that says they haven't done that. So when you have microtransactions at this level, this amount of them, the amount of mistakes are going to go through the roof. I mean, how many people are going to accidentally buy something? Or there's going to be people out there that quite literally make mods.
Yeah, like making mods just to get the money, not actually for the sake of making a mod. And so far we have one precedent of a mod developer giving refunds, and that was Chesco. He published his I think it was a fishing mod onto the
fishing mod
workshop. And because of Valve's NDA, before the release of the mod shop, he wasn't allowed to ask the modders who his work depended on. So because of the NDA, he wasn't allowed to ask for, can I actually use this and sell it for money? And after the fact, 4 came out and said, no, I'm not fine with that. And so Chesco himself rescinded his mod from the workshop and issued refunds, caused refunds to be issued. But what if, the mod developers aren't cooperative? Does Valve step in? How does Valve deal with that? We don't know yet.
Also
We don't
brings
know.
up how with copyright, because a lot of tools that people are making that are not strictly with that are not the Skyrim mod tools, but people use tools outside that are that are free for non revenue like projects. A lot of the software out there costs hundreds, thousands of dollars.
Going back to a little bit about Chesco, what do you suppose you would do in situations where you have maybe one mod that needs another mod in order to function?
It's an area that really hasn't been explored for the most part, especially when you have so many mods out there that derive from other mods. Perfect example is the Skyrim script extender. It is one of the most downloaded script mod or one of the mods for Skyrim ever. Simply because it extends, I believe, the memory range that mods can use, and a lot of mods use it. I mean, a lot of them use it. What if the script extender, they pretty much say nobody can use it anymore. We have copyrighted this mod. People who have bought mods or use mods that rely on this, what happens? And it's that kind of question that people are scared about of we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen.
Right, and if I remember correctly, the one of the developers of Center said he was okay with paid mods using it, but I can't find that source again, so I'll have to look that up later.
That sounds about right. He never said that it would cost money
Right,
to
yeah,
actually
I know he
happen.
said that, yeah.
But in a situation to other games where, what if a mod becomes necessary?
Yeah, and that's actually the case with Sky UI right now. A lot of mods also depend on Sky UI, and Sky UI is going to go behind a paywall soon. So how does that affect free mods that use it? Is everyone just left in the water, or?
Now, to be fair, it's not directly going behind a paywall. The most premium version of it is going behind a paywall. They've come out and said that they're going to be having like a later versions of it that come with like less features and do less things will be free, but there will be a paid version of it that has more features.
Right, yeah, and as far as I can tell, the way Sky UI is doing it is version 5.0 is going behind a paywall, and version 4.11 is still out there.
Let's move on to my last little thing I kind of want to talk about before we close out here. And you remember a few years ago, Street Fighter Cross Tekken came out, and there was a lot of backlash because on the actual retail disc, all of the characters that they were going to be selling as DLC characters were already sitting on there. They just couldn't be accessed. And Capcom basically said that it was just a way to save space and not to hate them, that kind of thing. So people were upset about that. People were also upset about day one DLC. You have a game come out and then, oh yay, it's already here. There's new DLC you can buy for it. People seem to have largely forgotten about that and moved on from that. People may not like it, but they still buy it. We're all dedicated Payday 2 players. A new DLC comes out. We might be kind of grumbling that, oh, they haven't fixed this, they haven't fixed that, but we'll still buy it and we'll still play it. So are people kind of over that and this is just kind of the next way to monetize games? Or do you think this is just going to fall apart in some way, or they're going to have to retool how they're doing this latest monetization?
I think honestly, people overreact to a lot of like day one DLC or the DLC is already on the disc. People have to like realize like back in the late 90s, early 2000s, we were in a kind of golden age that was undeserved. We had expansions that were actually expansions and not DLC. We had some DLC that was actually, substantial, but um I think a lot of people got so used to getting so much out of their game and paying so little for it that they kind of got a little bit entitled. I won't say people got so entitled like everything that the game industry is doing now is wrong, but I think we're getting just a little bit too overzealous with our accusations. Like perfect example is like you said with Street Fighter Cross Tekken, the DLC was already on the game, as in it was finished, it was ready. They could have released those characters with the game, no problem, right? But without the characters, was there really anyone saying that this game does not feel complete or this game does not feel like there's people missing? No. That wasn't the outrage. The outrage was only that the DLC was already on the discs. That was the issue. The other issue is that, well, like, perfect example was Mass Effect 3. And they had a day one DLC, which was not so much DLC, but almost kind of required content. It was, I believe, it was the last Prothean that was like, or it was the last, it was the only living Prothean, and it went into so much backstory. It was so expansive, and it was something that if you did not have it, the game felt incomplete. And that, I think, it was a legitimate complaint to where people were shortchanged actual content that made the base game feel less. Like it actually made the game less.
Yeah, and
Right?
another example of that is the Civilization franchise, where in recent
Oh
titles
God.
they've purposely, well, there's no evidence for it, but it's fairly out there. But they seem like they've been purposely excluding content and putting them in later expansions. But yeah, that's just another example, I guess.
Those Gods
So,
and Kings, right? Because they took it out of the they
yeah.
took religion out of the base game, but then they brought it back in Gods and Kings, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But the point what I wanted to make was, I think we were such in a good spot, and now we're kind of, coming down to where uh video games are actually starting to find their spot, to where you don't get the entire game with a $60 purchase anymore.
Right. So it's kind of like a growing pain phase for, I guess, because we still don't know how exactly this mod shop is going to affect gaming. We can speculate all we want, we can overreact all we want, or we praise it all we want. It's uncharted territory. We don't know where we're going, so pretty much all we can do right now
It's
is
new and
sit
it's
back
scary.
And that's the other thing that people just don't know, and people are coming up with these doomsday ideas of how it's going to be the end of gaming or how it's going to be the end of mods. I was like, no. People were saying the exact same things with DLC. It's like, oh, it's going to be the end of expansions, or it's going to be the end of this or that. And I can tell you, no, it's not. It's evolving. It's becoming something new. It's opening new avenues. Valve was for a long time praised for how well they were giving actual people who were making like items that want to be artists options in Dota 2. You want to be an artist and you want to make a good amount of money, there is now an opportunity out there for you to make an actual career out of making items. That's a career now because Valve has made so much money out of it. And there were people saying similar things as what they are saying now. It's going to be, oh, the death of this or the death of that. There's going to be a death of creativity. And in some respects, I will be fair and say that they're partly true. Some of the items that get into TF2 or Dota 2 are not the best items, and that's a fair complaint. But just because there's that bad aspect of it does not mean it's all bad. The way they have the Valve houses set up will change. It's not going to be set up the same way. It's not going to be handled the same way, and the kind of backlash will start to fade over time because Valve will make certain changes because the community asks for them. Now,
Yeah, I have a hard time believing that Valve would just leave it in its current state and not say anything more. I mean, so far it's only Skyrim. It's obviously just a pilot, so we'll
and
see.
that's what the
We'll see.
workshop was too.
Well, right, and I mean, look at how the Steam Workshop has really changed and evolved over the years. At first, it was just one or two games, and now the games that have Steam Workshop, there's so many of them, and the workshop adds so much more to the games. So we've had some really good thoughts, ideas, maybe ways to change the policies, and I just kind of want to get your all's final, last second thought, and just kind of see where do you all think that the shop is going to be going to here in the next few weeks, maybe a few months. What do you kind of think is going to happen? And what do you think maybe needs to happen? Just one or two things. We'll start with you, Zom.
Like I said earlier, I have a hard time believing that Valve will leave it in its current state. There's obviously going to be growing pains. So far, it's just with Skyrim. As the system matures, as people sort out their opinions, Valve sorts out their opinions. The mod developers get their thoughts in because initially it was under NDA with only a select few. So as people give feedback, I assume the system will have to change, or for the better or worse, I guess.
Yeah, people got to remember that this is brand new, and a lot of the opinions and a lot of like what's being said right now is emotional. This is like it's their first reaction. People haven't let it. People just have not given enough time to let it settle. People are just kind of lashing out because the idea, one, is new, and it's something on a scale that I think most people are not comfortable with. If we went from like the old Blizzard expansions where, Blizzard was introducing tens of hours to their games to what what other games developers do now, I guarantee you the outrage would be similar. Simply because it's a huge step. It's something that people have not seen before, and I guarantee you, Valve is watching this. They're taking everything with a little bit grain of salt. They're not going to cave to people who are creating these surveys or petitions. They're not going to just shut Valve does not make decisions lightly, and I guarantee you they have been working on this idea for a long time. In a few years, more games get into this, more games start making mod tools specifically for this, there's going to be more people who accept it. There's going to be more, it's going to become more generally accepted rather than people coming, calling for Gabe Newell's head, on a spike.
All right, well, there you guys have it. Let us know in the comments below what you think about all this. It's obviously a pretty big announcement. It's a pretty big change. It'll probably lead to some even bigger things. But it's new, a little bit scary, a little bit different. But let us know what you guys think. So I'd like to thank my friends Innerspike.
It was great being here.
And Xomm.
It's a pleasure.
For helping me out with this and giving me their awesome opinions and views. In the meantime, go out there, play some games, and remember to always have a good time gaming. Hey guys, it's Axiom. Thanks for checking out this podcast, and please let us know what you thought about it in the comments below, as well as paid mods as a whole. Also, stay tuned for a follow-up to this, as the paid mods field has changed recently.